and welcome to round number 2 here of our third Autumn Gym Challenge here. Psycho Boys at Pico Rivera, California. I am Jesus Coronel once again joining you here. We have our round 2 pairings. It's Coral Belmont and David Ortega for our round 2 fight of this Autumn Gym Challenge, and our round 2 coverage will start with Coral Belmont's perspective of Whimsicott, Archelodon, Rillaboom, Politoed, Garchomp, and the Alolan Ninetales, while David on the Incineroar, Dragonite, Kingambit, Gliscor, Alolan Ninetales, and Sneasler. So both teams have a respective snow mode, although not dedicated. Coral, on the other hand, has a better emphasis on the rain mode with the Politoed and the Archelodon, but there are some tricks up her sleeve, and it's going to be up to David whether or not he'll be able to figure out those tricks. Because although we're past Halloween, these tricks could become treats for either of these players. And with Coral's team, basically it's centered around the Archelodon and the Garchomp. A main emphasis towards offensive aggression with the Archelodon. You see it holding that Power Herb on the screen. It is Power Herb and Electro Shot, so once you power up that Electro Shot with that Archelodon, you will be in a great spot to just launch out big damage outputs. But now we're going to go into game number 1 here. David going to lead the Gliscor and the Ninetales. Coral leading her own Ninetales with the Whimsicott. And also important to note, it looked like David's Ninetales looked to be faster there from the turn interaction. So with the snow warning going up first from David, it could be signaling that the Ninetales from David's faster than Coral's, but Coral can switch the speed control to her favor with something like that Tailwind that Whimsicott has, or it could serve as a disruption towards David's team because, well, this Ninetales probably wants to go for that Aurora Veil, but if it can't, then David's going to deal with a little bit less defensive measures, and Gliscor going to go ahead and Terrasilize into that Ice type, so it will get rid of two of its weaknesses, but it's going to be a little bit of a dangerous game showing into that Ice type. Whimsicott going to go ahead and taunt the Ninetales to make sure it cannot go for that Aurora Veil to give Gliscor a necessary defensive measure. Freeze Dry is going to be resisted now by the Gliscor, and very much so. And Ninetales cannot use Aurora Veil after the taunt. Dual Wing Beat goes into the Whimsicott. It will knock it out through the Focus Sash because it's a multi-hit move. And so, Gliscor also going to become badly poisoned by the Toxic Orb, which will trigger that Poison Heal ability that it has, which will heal it every other turn at the end of each turn. But there's also something to know with this Gliscor, with that Terra Ice, it actually gives Gliscor a very good defense boost, because all Ice types get a defense boost by 50% with the snow up. And so with that snow, now Gliscor is in great defensive measures. And with those defenses, Gliscor's pretty sad to just launch out attacks towards the Ninetales and to the Garchomp. But at the same time, you're now susceptible to something like that Earthquake. And so it's going to be up to Coral to potentially get the snow out of the way, because as long as that snow is up, that defense boost will always go into both of David's Pokemon of the Gliscor and the Ninetales. Garchomp going to go ahead and go Terra into the ground type, but just because you Terra to a ground type doesn't mean you're still not. It doesn't mean you're safe from the Blizzard, because, well, you're still weak to Ice types. Launch the Blizzard. Garchomp is able to survive one of them. The Ninetales going to resist it. There is no freeze to be seen. There is the Aurora Veil coming out from Coral's Ninetales, so it will give a defense boost to both Pokemon. Rock Slide does double connect to both Pokemon. Decent damage to both, but Garchomp will take a bit more Life Orb damage. High Horsepower lands on the Ninetales, doesn't take it under half HP, and there's the Poison Heal on the Gliscor. And here, I believe, this is a great position from David still, because obviously the Ninetales is faster than all of Coral's Pokemon at the very moment, and now that it's faster, this Garchomp's still in trouble. I'm actually a little first off. I mean, nah. If you're supposed to go for Aurora Veil, that definitely wasn't the worst thing that could have been happening against that Gliscor, but you definitely lost a lot of momentum because the fact that the Gliscor went ahead and went Terra Ice. to get the defense boost, and now David's going to switch out the Gliscor. Who's hopefully get okay. Incineroar will come in, so we're going to intimidate into the Incineroar. I mean, in front of the Incineroar is the Garchomp. And now that that's coming in, this Garchomp will be protecting this turn. This Ninetales can't really threaten both of these Pokemon anymore with damage necessarily from the Ninetales. His special attack that's pretty low. Blizzard comes out from David's Ninetales, gets Ninetales of Coral under half. There's a dazzling lean launching from Coral's Ninetales, but now the Ninetales from David is shook off the taunt and now has an opportunity to go for an Aurora Veil. And yeah, this is not looking good for Coral because, well, the issue is the Politoed has to come in to make sure Aurora Veil doesn't go up. But it leaves you open to Freeze Dry in the slot no matter what, because even if you do switch in the Politoed into that slot, David might not know it yet, but once you see that it is Politoed coming in, Freeze Dry is definitely the safe move there out of David. Coral going to bring out the Politoed here with the Drizzle ability to override the Snow for Rain. Incineroar probably is going to go for Fake Out. Yeah, it goes for the Fake Out onto the Ninetales. Coral will flinch it. Ooh, it actually might be a speed type between both of these Ninetales, and an Encore comes out into the Garchomp slot, but unfortunately it's swapped out the moment it went for the Protect. And now this is an interesting situation because Incineroar is not safe anymore because the Politoed does carry Weather Ball, which is currently super effective against the Incineroar, and it will do great damage into the Gliscor. I think David needs to get his Ninetales out of here because, well, if David doesn't have weather control against this Politoed, then you're not going to have, a great leeway to soak up the damage into Politoed. Ooh, Incineroar actually just won the swap here from David. In comes the Gliscor for that slot. Coral's Ninetales going to use Protect to make sure that the other Ninetales doesn't knock it out from here. There's a Freeze Dry into this Politoed. It will take a... Okay, that's just a lot less damage than I was thinking it was going to do. There's the Weather Ball. Launches into the Gliscor. I think this will knock it out. Oh, never mind. It lives on a very sliver amount of HP. And yeah, that's probably the worst thing that could have happened because Ninetales is still pretty slow against both the Gliscor and the Ninetales. But the nice thing is, I think the Freeze Dry does knock out Gliscor, so pretty much just forcing Gliscor to use Protect here. Ninetales probably forced to switch out as well, just to get Weather Reset. I mean, that slot's probably susceptible, probably swapping Incineroar or Sneasler here. Oh, hey, no switch out, actually, so the Gliscor is going to Protect. It this Freeze Dry from the Ninetales, okay, never mind, goes to the Encore to make sure it keeps protecting as long as it stays on the field. And I think Coral's forced to keep it on the field because you want to have the Weather Ball for water and not necessarily the Weather Ball for ice. As fortunately for Coral, the Ninetales goes down to the Weather Ball. Poison Heal once again going to give Gliscor necessarily healing. And now, okay, we do know, okay, last Pokemon from David is the Sneasler, so we know all of David's Pokemon, and this Sneasler is a coaching variant, so it will provide Gliscor a very big buff towards its attack and defense, but neither matter as long as Garchomp's not in the equation, and the only way Garchomp gets into the equation is if the Sneasler isn't a threat right now. Ninetales forced to protect from the Encore, meaning this Politoed's wide open for a potential Dire Claw, or just a close combat straight up. So it will take it under 50% HP, which it will activate the Citrus Berry that it's holding. It just comes down to what this Gliscor does here, because if Gliscor goes after the Ninetales with a high horsepower, it should not knock out here. It will connect to the Politoed. It will not knock it out. Here's the Weather Ball into the Gliscor. This one will knock it out. And now I believe in your core, you gotta find a situation to which you have to switch out the Ninetales. Or at the very least get... Because the last Pokemon are Sneasler and Incineroar. Intimidate's no longer a thing. But the Sneasler is faster than the Garchomp. So you're still going to go down to Dire Claw / close combat. This Ninetales is still protecting, meaning Politoed's probably wide open for any damage heading its way. What else is going to... I mean... I don't necessarily think protecting there is correct if I'm Coral. I just think David's in a better position with the Incineroar and Sneasler at higher HP, and Sneasler being faster, commanding the field of play, with Coral's Pokemon being all low HP, with Aurora Veil slowly running out for Coral. Ninetales does not get a double protect, unfortunately. This Incineroar should be going for the fake out here, and it will be a Politoed protect to cover for that slot at the minimum. It is a fake out into the Politoed, so no damage done there. But will this be close combat? No, it should just be Dire Claw for the rest of the game. Yeah, you're pretty much losing nothing for going to Dire Claw for the rest of the game. You know, Ninetales goes down. Presumably, Garchomp should also go down to a Dire Claw, meaning I believe that this game will be going to David because, well, the Sneasler is commanding the position. Not only that, the rain's gone as well, so you don't have the Weather Ball anymore. Yeah, this is just not a great spot for Coral because, well, once again, the Sneasler is just faster. I keep making an emphasis on the Sneasler being faster, but that's because it is currently faster. There goes Garchomp. Yeah. Unfortunately, though, that Sneasler did go for the close combat. It did break the focus ash at the Sneasler, funny enough. And this Incineroar should just be going for a knockoff here and should KO the Politoed with that one hit. Not before Politoed took his Weather Ball off, but unfortunately the Rain Gun is just a 50 power move. Yeah, not doing a whole lot of damage. There's a knockoff. We have game up. No, never mind. Politoed survives another turn with their Aurora Veil, but that also goes away as well. So, that is still bad news, Bears. Close combat will finish the deal. David Ochoa wins the number 1. I don't know if you guys hear that on the microphone, ladies and gentlemen, but Coral is definitely very excited about the Politoed surviving the close combat because, well, I think that's showing that the Sneasler is not as offensive as you like it to be because, well, although it is holding a Focus Ash, although it is very high damage producing, it's unfortunately, its best role is just coaching, and it was able to do that for at least the first turn. Okay, so I think for Coral to come back here, I don't necessarily think the Winscott play was incorrect. It was mostly just like, well, it stopped the 9,000 from Aurora Veil. That was the big thing. The worst thing was that I think Politoed coming in on the Ninetales would have been a lot better in terms of like weather control, because that not only stops the Aurora Veil, meaning you don't really have to taunt that slot, meaning that you could just go for Tailwind, you just never had a speed situation against a Sneasler for the rest of the game. Unless, of course, you practice Focus Sash, which will proc Burden. Alright, here we go. Game number 2. Both players are locked and loaded. Coral needs to win the next 2 to advance to a 2-0 record. David just needs to win 1 more in order to finish the set and advance to 2-0 for himself. And here's game number 2 start. Ooh, Ninetales Sneasler lead for David, and it's going to be Ninetales Garchomp for Coral. But unfortunately, this is the same situation as the last game with the Garchomp running into a problem with the Ninetales because, well, it's faster than you. You don't have a defensive Terra means to get out of the Ice weakness with the ground typing. You can survive one Blizzard on the Terra ground, but you're not surviving a close combat combination, which is, I think, the bigger issue. I'm just interested to see if the Dire Claw's enough to knock out the Ninetales with the Snow Boost, although it is weak to Fairy. Because if it's not enough, then, well, we're looking really bad here if you're Coral, but very great for David if you get it off. It's also a pretty free turn to go. Oh, I was expecting a Politoed switch in there. I'm pretty surprised Coral didn't do it because, okay, well, that's probably the reason why you don't do it. So Blizzard is actually faster than the Sneasler. So that's a really fast Ninetales compared to that Sneasler, and Coral Sneasler gets off the. I mean, Coral's Ninetales, excuse me, gets off the Aurora Veil, meaning it will survive the Dark Call a lot more better. Oh, it just survives with HP, 18 HP, no secondary effect, meaning I believe this Garchomp is now in a better spot to take Blizzard once it's Terra's. Alright, and the weird part about this one is that you either need to switch in Politoed and then potentially never survive an Earthquake. I mean, you would probably survive one next to your own Aurora Veil. I think that's how that works. But either way, David's in an interesting situation because close combat is not going to knock out either Pokemon. Blizzard might get the finish onto the Garchomp, depending on whether or not David goes for the Blizzard at all. As Coral's Garchomp goes for the Terra Ground, Ninetales for Coral going to protect in front of Encore once again from David. What does the Ninetales do here? Okay, Sneasler protects, so Sneasler is always going to survive this turn. The Ninetales launches another Blizzard. It should take it, barring a critical hit and barring a freeze as well. Yeah, it will take one Blizzard. It will launch an Earthquake towards this Ninetales, but it is just snow boosted with that Ice typing base. And although this is a Terra Ground Life Orb boosted Earthquake, you are still going to be taking a whole lot of damage from this Ninetales. Should be half. Okay, over half. That is pretty promising damage. But the problem, I tell you once again, ladies and gentlemen, the problem is that the Ninetales to David's still faster, meaning another Blizzard will knock it out. And, oh, okay, that's interesting that, David switching out the Sneasler here, because I don't think you're really threatened by the Ninetales going for Freeze Dry here, but, you know, switching into Intimidate isn't the worst thing to happen here, because, well, you get the Intimidate drop on the Garchomp if you choose to get the Ninetales out of the situation, or if it protects. Ninetales for David is going to launch. That's a third Blizzard it's launched with the Snow Up. I'm surprised it's not going for Aurora Veil, and Ninetales for Coral goes down because it was fairly crippled as it was, meaning it wouldn't really survive another one at 18 HP, but it does leave Coral a pretty good position to get a Charcharodon and Politoed going, as we see those two are the last two for David. I mean, for Coral. Alright, we are going to see the Politoed come in here, so no more snow for the time being for David, and that means that Cincinnati, barring a Terra, will be weak to that Weather Ball. And with Ninetales, you really are forced to click Freeze Dry, because Blizzard is not going to hit Garchomp. I mean, it's still a knockout Garchomp, it won't do that much damage to Politoed, and it's now just the 70% accuracy. Oh, I forgot there was a fake out this turn for the Ninetales as well. Yeah, instead of going for fake out Politoed plus Encore into the Garchomp, meaning it's not going to be doing a whole lot of anything this turn. But this is also just the same situation as the last turn, because, well, this Garchomp's locked in the Protect, meaning the Politoed's wide open to take damage, meaning it's probably Freeze Dry knockoff or Freeze Dry parting shot into the Politoed for David. And David's switch-ins are just a Sneasler that we know about, which already shown to be slower than both Ninetales. And here's our Chaladon from Coral, so okay, yeah, I also agree with this Incineroar swapping out here, and Sneasler comes back into play. And so, we see a Freeze Dry into the Garchomp slot, so our Chaladon is going to take at least one. The Weather Ball goes into the Ninetales, so this is a good position for Coral now, because now your Weather Balls are remaining to be a Water type for the rest of the game as long as the rate's up. You still have Aurora Veil, so maybe you can take a close combat from the Sneasler. Incineroar wasn't going to come in. So, Fake Out is going to come out from one of these targets, more than likely. It's just a matter of who. And so, this turn's really important for Coral because, well, you can't Terra the Archaludon anymore for the rest of the game because, well, you Terra the Garchomp earlier. It threatens damage to the Incineroar and the Sneasler, but it's likely slower than the Sneasler. And it does make the most sense for Archaludon to protect in front of close combat. A double protect, actually, from both these Pokemon, Politoed and Archaludon. Fake out. See what the threat was? It was the Politoed, and I'm presuming this is close combat into the Archaludon. It is close combat into the Archaludon, so it's a weird situation for Coral. I don't think it's unwinnable. But the thing that's holding Coral back from really taking offensive pressure into this game is, unfortunately, the Focus Sash that Sneasler's possessing, because with that Focus Sash, okay, we are going to see the Terra come out from David. I believe this is going to be the Stellar Terra from the Sneasler. No, it's the Ghost Terra from Incineroar. It's going to try to survive a Weather Ball, and I believe it will indeed survive a Weather Ball. There's close combat onto the Archaludon. Doesn't knock him with the Aurora Veil. Yes, it does! Unfortunately there, the Aurora Veil just not giving Archaludon enough defensive measures to survive against a close combat from that Sneasler. And now this Incineroar is really in a good spot. Weather Ball into the Sneasler. Does this actually proc the Focus? Oh, it does proc the Focus Dash. Uh-oh. That's going to trigger Unburden, meaning the Sneasler is now double speed. As long as it's in play, Knockoff comes out. There goes the Citrus Berry from Coral. No more healing, and this Garchomp is for sure in trouble. Yeah, there's the Garchomp once again from Coral. I'm struggling to see a point in which this well, stop. I don't think there's anything stopping the Sneasler for just clicking close combat into the Garchomp and then you just go parting shot onto the Politoed, weakening it. I think that's the move if you're David, because you could pivot out into your last Pokemon, which if it's King Gambit, sure. If it's Dragonite, that's really ideal, because this Garchomp is not carrying a Dragon move, believe it or not. ECZ here, is Rock Slide? Yeah, you need to hope that the Sneasler protects. That is step one. It is step one. And so now we see the Rock Slide go out into the Incineroar. Will it hit? It will hit. It won't do a whole lot of damage for now. It will hit a Life Orb as well with the Recoil. Weather Ball doubles into the Incineroar, so it does read the Protect at the very least. Incineroar goes under half HP. No flinch. Here's the knockoff. Down goes Garchomp, and I believe this is it for Coral, because Politoed is running out of time to really take advantage of the Water-type Weather Ball. And the Sneasler is just free to go for Dire Claw. Maybe get a Dire Claw sleep. It's just some fun things that David can go for. The rain, unfortunately, is over, as is the Aurora Veil, so the Weather Ball, unfortunately, is not gonna... It's gonna knock out the Sneasler, but now you can no longer touch the Incineroar because of the type. Yeah, you can no longer touch the Incineroar because it's now a normal typing, and now the weather is just non-existent for the rest of the game. And that's just gonna be another close combat into this Politoed. It is enough for the knockout. David Ochoa! David Ochoa wins game number 2 and wins the set over Coral Belmont 2-0. Impressive set all around from David. You know, perfectly showcasing, not necessarily perfectly showcasing the Quest score, but it did what it had to do, which was knock out the Whimsicott turn 1, and it became a nuisance later on for Coral. And yeah, that was a little bit of a heavy hitting Sneasler there. You know, Dire Claw doing a whole lot of damage. Close combat was just consistent throughout the entire game. You know, it KO'd the Archaludon even with the Aurora Veil up, and that probably goes to show about the training that the Archaludon went, because it probably wasn't a little bit of an offensive step with that Power Herb. You know, wanting to get that electric shot off. But that's it for round number 2 here. We'll take a break. We'll be back for round number 3 right after this break.